What's up, YouTube? This is Just My Opinion, and today I will be reviewing the Beatles Magical Mystery Tour. Why, you ask? Because it's my channel. I don't always have to review new music, and to me, good music has no age. It stands the test of time, just like this does, so fuck off. The Beatles, band from England, really need no introduction. They are arguably, if not the best, one of the greatest rock bands of all time, consisting of Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, Ringo Starr. These guys are iconic. Came out in the 60s with a lot of very good pop rock that really gave them a lot of notoriety, and that's how I discovered them, through albums like A Hard Day's Night and Help. Those two albums were on repeat a lot throughout my childhood, as they were a big part of my early music experience. But as they started making more and more albums, they started experimenting more with more art rock, more psychedelic rock, and just really pushing the boundaries. That started with Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And this album in particular comes in between Sgt. Pepper and the White Album. Came out in 1967. It's actually a two-sided EP, was released as a two-sided EP in the UK, but later on in the US it actually got it put into a double album format. And the album starts out with the title track, and this is a standout track of mine. It really welcomes you into this journey of an album that we're about to experience. Very grand opening. The brass section and the trumpets on this song make it sound almost like a king is coming. There's this bus that kind of soars in and out of the track as well. You kind of hear speed by, a great addition to it. A lot of different sounds being thrown at you, but it's a great introduction to what we're going to hear for the rest of the album. After, we get Fool on the Hill, which has this very peaceful but melancholy feel at the same time, sung by Paul McCartney on this one, and he does an outstanding job delivering this song, all about this person who is alone and misunderstood, but at the same time is very content with being that way. Great lead pianos on this, but the flute sections on this song is what really make the track. Another great song from this album. Then we get Flying, almost like this instrumental interlude. This is another standout track of mine. Has a very spacey, mellow type feel. Really feels like you're actually floating in clouds. Very jazzy, nice mellow guitars, some nice organs in there as well. But the backing vocals and the mellotron instrument that they use on this is really what kind of lulls you in to the production and just makes you feel very tranquil. It's a very, very good instrumental piece from the project. We then get Blue Jay Way, which has this kind of foggy, psychedelic type vibe to it. Has some very nice lead organs in there. The violin and the cello sections are outstanding on this. A lot of Indian instrumentation incorporated on this one, probably because George Harrison, who sung this song as well, he was always inspired by these Indian instruments. Technically speaking, it was very ahead of its time with some of the techniques that were going on in it. You kind of hear some of George's vocals kind of floating in and out of the track. There's some reverse sounds in there as well, which at the time was kind of something that no one was really doing, but the Beatles definitely experimented with that and it sounded great. And after this, we get Your Mother Should Know, which is kind of up-tempo coming off of Blue Jay Way. This is another standout track of mine, sung by Paul McCartney. Does a very good job on this one. Has kind of this ballroom ballad type feel to it, but the other members of the group do an outstanding job on the backing vocals of this as well. Very nice piano and organ leads on this, and this song is a nice feel-good song and is an ode to all the mothers out there. Shout out Mom. And then we get I Am the Walrus, which is just still probably my favorite song on the album. It's easily the quirkiest song on the album. Sung by John Lennon. The lyrics on this just absolutely make no sense. He's sitting on cornflakes. There's penguins singing. I didn't ever think a walrus could make a sound cuckoo choo, but at the same time, it's strangely catchy. The way that it was all put together, arranged, so many different elements and instruments going on, but it's all composed together very well. There's a lot of strange backing vocal sound effects and things going on, but it just ties the song all together in this very odd but catchy way. Then we get Hello Goodbye, which lyrically wise is probably the simplest lyrically. Everything's contradicting each other. You say yes, I say no. You say stop, I say go. Sung by Paul McCartney, but this has a catchiness to it. It has probably the most classic Beatles pop quality to this song out of any of the other songs on the entire album. The way it's arranged, it has just that classic, timeless Beatles feel. Although they still do experiment with violins and everything, it's still very much guitar and drum driven and bass driven than most of the other songs on this album. And then we get Strawberry Fields. This is actually the first of two songs back to back that are kind of homages to England, where they are from. This one is definitely more experimental and more psychedelic sounding. This one is sung by John. And again, they're playing with the reverse effects throughout this song that a lot of people weren't really doing at this time. The horn and trumpet and cello sections, there's just a lot of layers to those instruments on this song, but the drums on this by Ringo probably hit harder than any other song on this. Love the drums on this one. There's great guitars still. At the end of the song too, they kind of fade out but then fade back in to the song with more very colorful psychedelic instrumentation. This whole thing just sounds like one big giant acid trip. But then we get Penny Lane, a more up-tempo homage to England, sung by Paul this time, and this has more of the classic Beatle pop elements in there as well. Some great piano lead melodies, really great trumpet solos throughout this song as well. Another classic, timeless sounding Beatles song with a lot of pop sensibility while still experimenting as well. And then we get Baby You're a Rich Man, which is another catchy song, kind of a forgotten gem from this project. This one is sung by John. He does a great job on the vocals on this one. Has kind of a clunky guitar and bass line, but still very rhythmic at the same time. They're also using a claviolin on this one, another instrument that a lot of people weren't really experimenting with, but it sounded great with the rest of the arrangement on this song. And then the album closes out with All You Need Is Love, a huge hippie anthem, sung by John Lennon. It's just another timeless Beatles song, great vocal melodies, great orchestra sounds in there, a great guitar solo by George Harrison, and a great message overall about love being kind of a driving force for everyone. It's all you need, and a great way to close out a great album. So in conclusion, this in my opinion is, if not the best, it's one of the best Beatles albums of all time, but it is certainly also one of their most forgotten, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it is because it was only released as an EP, so most people don't think of it as an album. Maybe because it was one of their first albums that did not peak at #1 in the UK, even though it peaked at #1 in the US. Maybe because it's kind of remembered as a soundtrack to what was a bizarre movie that the Beatles created, which really would only make sense if you see it on drugs, probably. I've seen it, and it's just very, very weird, very strange. And it's probably because it's also peppered between two of their more popular albums of all time, Sgt. Pepper and the White Album. This album definitely follows a similar format to Sgt. Pepper, but I think this one was a little bit more cohesive, a little bit more colorful, and a little bit more fun than Sgt. Pepper, a little bit more groomed with this sound and style that they were going for. And for the way it was put together, it was definitely pushing the boundaries of the band and just music in general. It's produced very, very well. It was experimenting with a lot of sounds, and the instrumental arrangements and techniques that they were using on a lot of these songs were very ahead of time in the music world. This is definitely a gem in their discography, definitely one of my all-time favorite Beatles albums. I give this a 9 out of 10. Remember, this is just my opinion, and thank you for watching YouTube.